Okay, awesome. We're live now.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. Again, apologies for that. If you joined us a few minutes ago, we may have had a few challenges technically. So again, Terry Edwards and Drew Edwards from MakeMorePlacements.com, and today we're going to share with you the 5 things that stop recruitment and search firm owners winning retained or exclusive business. Drew, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, again, if you're listening live, just to let us know everything's working okay, can you just give us a like, just so we know that you can both hear and see it's okay?
Excellent. So by doing that, I think before we get into what's stopping you from getting retained or exclusive, I just want to very quickly explain the differences. So retained, as the name implies, is where the client, you're retained exclusively by the client, and the client will pay you a percentage of the fee up front. So whatever happens, you're going to get some financial reward for the work that you do. That's retained. Then you've got exclusive, and exclusive where you're working exclusively with a client. You're still probably not going to get paid until you fill the role, but it's just you working on that particular role. And contingency, which in my opinion is the worst of the worst, is where you and a ton of other recruiters are working on the same job order. And it's the quickest recruiter that's going to fill the role. It's as simple as that. So you might have 4 or 5 other recruiters working on the same role. And if the 4 or 5 other recruiters had the job order a week or a few days before you, of course, they've got an advantage over you. The downside is that majority of the time when you work on retained, let me repeat, the majority of the time that you work on retained, you do not get paid, because majority of the time...
Retained?
Sorry, you do not get... Majority of the time you work on contingency, thank you, Drew, you do not get paid because most of the time the job orders that you work on, you don't fill. In fact, the average contingent recruiter will fill between sort of 10 and maybe 40% of the roles, but it does mean that most of the time contingent recruiters don't get paid. So they end up working their butt off for nothing. And I don't know any other industry like it, where you can do a lot of work for a client and half a dozen of the guys are doing the same work, and the client's going to go with the fastest rather than the best. I don't know any other industry like it. So that's the difference between the two. Anything to add to that, Drew?
Yeah, I think, you said the majority of the time you don't get paid on contingency. I think, ultimately it depends on your fill rate. But yeah, from my point of view, I think, if you can get paid up front for the work that you do, it's not easy filling a role. I always think that's the way you should do it. You should get paid up front, work on partnership with the client, and it shows that they value you and they actually believe in your ability to deliver the service as well. Yeah,
good point. Good point. So when you get this right, what it means is you're going to work less and earn more. Let me repeat that. When you get this right, you will work less and earn more. Because if you're the average contingent recruiter and let's say your fill rate is 40%, what that means is you have to work on 10 job orders to fill 4. When you work on the exclusive or retained, you work just on that one job order. So you'll work substantially less and earn more. Also, when you get this right, it has a massive impact on your cash flow, because rather than this peaks and troughs or famine and feast that many recruitment and search firm owners have, where cash coming in is lumpy, that once you win the retainer, you're going to get the first stage fee. About 4 to 6 weeks later, you're going to get the shortlist fee, and maybe a month after that, you're going to get 8 weeks later, you're going to get the final stage. So you've got this. It's easy to predict your cash flow as well. There are many advantages. When you get it right, obviously the client's paying up front. When you get it wrong, you're stuck in this contingency model where nobody benefits. The client, the candidate, nobody benefits with the contingent model. So that's what. So the first thing is, so number one, the recruiter thinks more about themselves and keep talking about themselves rather than the benefits to the client. There's a saying that you may have heard. Anybody who's got children relate to this. You can get anybody to do anything if you can communicate the benefit of them doing it. And one of the problems for recruiters is they talk about why they want the retainer, how it's going to benefit them rather than communicating the benefit to the client. Just to explain that, if you've got young children of a certain age, I'm sure as a parent you would have said something like this: if you don't eat your greens, you're not going to get a dessert. If you don't do this, you're not going to go on your computer. Now the kids don't want to eat their greens. They don't want to tidy their room, as an example. What they do want, though, is they do want the dessert. They do want to go on the computer. And it's exactly the same for the client. If you can communicate the benefit to the client, then you're more likely to get the client to want to pay you a retainer or work with you on an exclusive basis. Anything to add to that, Drew?
No, yeah, I think you covered that well. I think especially a recruiter who's making the transition, so they're currently contingency, but they want to move to retained. I think the benefits to the recruiter are obvious, or should be obvious, right? You can get paid up front. You've got more chance to win the role. All the things that you spoke about at the beginning. But I think when it comes to them communicating to the client, they get fixated on the benefits to them rather than the benefits to the client. Because like you said, a retainer or exclusive role that helps both parties if done right. And I think the benefits to you as a recruiter are irrelevant. It's all about how you're getting across the benefit to the client or potential client, as to whether they're going to go down that route or not.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first one is thinking about themselves rather than the client. Number two, the recruitment firm or recruiter has no sales process, no sales and marketing process for winning retained business. So the typical recruiter will call the hiring manager and say something like this: "Are you recruiting right now?" Or the typical recruiter may what we call ambulance chase. So they see some ads somewhere, I think, actually, I've got just the candidates for that. The typical recruiter may spec in a candidate, but there's no actual sales process. If you ask a hiring manager, are you recruiting right now? And the hiring manager says, yes, I am. And what I do is if you've got anybody that's right for this role, send them over. And then the hiring manager then sends you over the job spec, and then you putting the phone down and high-fiving your colleagues because you've just won some business. Quite frankly, that's BS and that's fantasy land. You haven't won anything because there was no sale involved. What the client said is, if you know anybody, send them over to me. But just to make it clear, I'm working with half a dozen of your competitors as well. There's no relationship there whatsoever. There's going to be no exchange in value. The client's simply giving the job order. And if you've ever experienced a situation where a client gives you the job order, you work your butt off to fill that role. You then chase the client to get some feedback and never hear from the client again. There's a sign that the client simply gave you that job order to get rid of you. That's all that was involved there. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. And I think, like you said, if you're a contingency recruiter, you don't really have to convince the client that much to use you because there's no perceived risk from the client's point of view. But obviously when you're going down the retained route, because there is that upfront payment. If you're not good at sales, you're not good at selling the idea of using you exclusively or using you on a retained basis, then that's going to put a stop to your ability to win a retainer as well.
Yeah, and not only the sales process, but also the marketing process. So if the client has never heard of you before, and you're saying to a client, look, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I want you to pay me 8, 10. I was talking to a client this morning. He just got a £17,000, so about a $20,000 retainer. Now you don't get that from cold calling and a lousy sales process. But what he's got in place, he's got an excellent sales and marketing process in place, so that when he calls hiring managers, at the very least, they know who he is. So he's straight away is an advantage over the majority of recruiters who are calling hiring managers they've never even spoken to, and the hiring managers never ever heard of them. So just to recap, no sales or marketing process in place is number 2. Number 3 is belief. Here's a fact. Whatever you believe, it's true. So if you believe, yeah, but my market's different and they don't pay retainers, then you'll find the evidence to support it, and it's absolutely correct. But here's something worth asking. How would it be for you if you actually believe that not all my clients will pay a retainer? And in fact, if I think about it, I only need 2 clients to pay me a retainer each month, and I'm going to earn substantially more than I'm earning now and earn a lot more. How would your behavior be then? Because I want to be clear about this. Saying that my clients don't pay retainers isn't true. saying that nobody pays a retainer. Somebody said to me today, there's no organisation that pays a retainer. That's absolute BS. But the problem with that is if you believe that nobody's going to pay you a retainer, your behaviour is going to be as such that you're never going to ask for a retainer. If you don't believe anybody pays one, then you're never going to ask it. Ask for it. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, I think this is probably the biggest reason why people don't get retainers, is simply not asking for it. And again, a lot of that comes down to, they don't think that they'll get it. They don't think their clients will pay it. They don't think it can be done in their market. We've worked with recruiters over the world. A lot of them, when they come to us, they've never won a retainer before. They've never worked on a retained basis, but just simply, opening up the possibility that it could be done. You see people, straight away, the next sales call, next time I speak to a client, they're winning retainers just because they're actually willing to ask the question. So I think that's probably the biggest, from my point of view, like the biggest reason why people don't, is they don't believe they can, and so they don't ask.
Yeah, good point. So if you don't believe you can, so here's what we often get is, my market don't pay retainers. I say, how do you know? They say, well, I've never been paid a retainer. I say, well, how often do you ask? And they say, the recruiter, well, I don't ask because I don't pay. Well, here's the thing. I'm yet to meet a hiring manager that says, hey, listen, Mr. or Mrs. Recruiter, before you go any further, I insist that I pay you a retainer. That doesn't happen. I agree with that 100%. But going back to what we said earlier, if you can communicate the benefit to the hiring manager and them engage you on a retained or exclusive basis, then they will, if there's a reason for them doing it. So that's number 3, believing that it can't be done. Number 4, and this is, I think we're all guilty of this, assuming that the client understands the difference between retained, contingent, or exclusive. See, because we're in the industry and we can use terms like contingent and retained and exclusive, we use that industry language with the assumption that when you use that language, the hiring manager knows exactly what you're talking about, and they understand the difference between the 3. In many cases, the hiring manager doesn't, and it's up to you. It's your responsibility to communicate the difference between the 2 and the benefit to the hiring manager, and also the benefit that it will have on the candidate as well. So it's making that assumption that the client doesn't understand and then communicating the difference. Yeah, what would you add to that, Drew?
Yeah, I think you see this often when you're perhaps speaking to a client or a prospect who's used to going down the contingency route. They've either worked with you on contingency before, or every other recruiter they've worked with has been down that route, and then all of a sudden you're coming in and saying, look, let's go down the retained route. And from their point of view, from the hiring manager's point of view, all they see is, before I didn't have to pay until after I got results. Now I'm paying up front. Why would I, from their point of view, why would they do that? It's because, they don't necessarily understand the difference in terms of what service they'll get as a result. I think, sometimes we can make the assumption of, that they understand terminology because they know what the words mean, but they only know what it means in the sense of they know what how the payment terms are different. They don't actually know what happens behind closed doors. The difference between a retained and contingency service.
Yeah. So it's imperative that you communicate that. And the final one, number 5, getting the timing wrong. Fact, if you cold call a hiring manager and the hiring manager says, yeah, we are recruiting right now, and we're giving this to half a dozen of your competitors, the chances of you getting a retained assignment on that particular job order are slim to non-existent. So timing is imperative. So talking to a hiring manager who's recruiting right now, you're not going to get a retainer. This is what many recruiters get wrong. You should be talking to hiring managers today about their recruitment needs over the next 60 to 90 days. Because that way you can have a conversation about working with you exclusively or on the retained basis. But they can't do that if they've already given that job order to half a dozen of your competitors. And many recruiters get this wrong. And they get on the phone and they call a complete stranger and they beg for business for a complete stranger. And the stranger says, well, actually, we're recruiting right now. We've got some guys working on this. I'll send you over the job order. You'll never get a retained or exclusive assignment working like that. And, you should stop that immediately and get your timing right and talk about what they're going to be doing in the future rather than what they're doing right now, because you can't do anything about it, quite frankly. Anything to add to that, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of that, I wouldn't say never. I wouldn't say never, because there are definitely cases where you do speak to the hiring manager after they've already started the recruitment process, and they've perhaps got some recruiters working on it who aren't delivering, or aren't delivering the quality of candidates they want, and then they might, they still might be willing to talk about going down the retained route. But in terms of, we like to look at things in terms of what gives you the best chance, and you stand a far better chance of winning the business on your terms if you're speaking to the hiring manager and you've got that relationship with the hiring manager almost before they have a need. Effectively, we always talk about you want to be the first person they think of when they do have a need. You don't want to be introducing yourself when they have a need, because for someone to pay you a fee up front, one of the biggest elements that's needed is trust in you, trust in your ability to deliver. Obviously, the longer you've had to build that relationship, the easier it is to build that trust. So I think sometimes when you look at a lot of marketing that recruiters do, they're solely going after people who are recruiting now, which at one level makes sense, because if they're recruiting now, they're going to buy. But if you want either higher fees or retained or exclusive, then we need to get there. We need to have that relationship before they have a need. Before they're thinking of buying, right? We've all probably got people who, in different industries, friends of ours, or people we've got good relationships with. And, you probably know that, when I need to buy, for example, it could be buying a house. When I need to buy a house, I'm going to speak to that person. Or when I need to buy a car, I'm going to speak to that person, because the relationship's already been developed. That's what we really want with hiring managers in your market. We want the relationship to be developed before they have a need, and them to almost be thinking, as soon as I have a need, I'm going to speak to so-and-so, because we've already got that trust there and I know that they can deliver. Yeah,
excellent. So look, right now we're going through the strangest time ever. One of the things that we're getting, we speak to recruitment and search business owners every day of the week, and one of the things they're saying is that one of the benefits of what we're going through right now, it gives you an opportunity to reflect on everything and reflect on your business. So if you're in that position right now, you reflect on your business and you thought about it and thought, hell yeah, most of the time we're working on contingent. Most of the time we're working, we're not getting paid. Most of the time, if you think about it, you're actually failing most of the time. Most of the time, the client doesn't value and respect you because it's on contingent and they're giving it to everybody else as well. So, and you've thought, do you know what? I'm sick and tired of doing that. And if there's another way of doing this, so I can have a situation where I'm working with clients who value and respects me, who I can work with clients, which means that my cash flow is I've eliminated that famine and feast, and there's a steady increase of cash coming into my business. I'm working with clients, as I say, who value and respect me and trust my judgment as well, and that's why they're paying me up front. If I'm sick and tired of working I can't think of the right word, butt off, on 10 jobs and maybe only filling 2 or 3, but in fact there's another way of doing it where I could only work on 1 or 2 and get paid for those, then this really is for you. And if you want to discover how you can win more retained assignments, so you work less and earn more, and how you can win more exclusive assignments, if you go to makemoreplacements.com/apply and jump on a call with one of our team. And what we do, we'll ask you a few questions to see if this is right for you. And if it is, we'll then give you a blueprint about exactly how you can do that. So you've got to be an owner or director of the business. And you've got to be serious about generating more income and working less and earning more. Simply go to makemoreplacements.com/apply and jump on the call with one of our team. And we'll do a quick analysis to see if this is right for you. And we'll share with you how to win more retained or exclusive business. And it's a lot easier than you imagine. Anything to add to that, Drew?
No.
Awesome. Listen, thank you very much for joining us. Look out for our next live Facebook Live. And we'll share more tools and techniques and strategies to help you grow your business. Until next time, take care. Take action and be relentless. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Drew.